Oh, sorry, Gilbert was a little bit late. Gilbert is
I'm
actually
late.
our assistant shop steward, so he is our third officer who's not running for office.
Oh, okay.
And it would also
No,
would have
because you came
been,
in, it was like.
yeah,
No,
it
no, no,
would have
I
also
do-
been the
I know
president and
it was.
vice president, but they're trapped, just like everybody
Right.
from New
I
Jersey.
do
trapped.
apologize.
No, no,
I-
that's
okay. I didn't,
I
actually,
should say for the home audience, we're short on candidates because nobody from New Jersey Transit can make it. There is a fire in the tunnel coming from New Jersey, so it's a wall of steel. That same wall of steel is also keeping away the local vice president and president. So that's why there are 4 candidates instead of 6.
and I came through that same way, so just lucky to make it, and that's why I was 20 minutes late, so please excuse me. Of course, all our friends in rank. Now, you know, I've actually looked, this is not something that, I looked at each candidate, and I know all of you have qualified experiences, there's no question about it. The first thing I'd like to speak to Luis. Have you ever been to Gray Line? And have you ever walked through our rank and files and made yourself available to any questions and answers?
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I'll try and get a ballpark figure. About maybe 4 years ago, Serge, maybe you can help me out with this.
Yeah.
I was one of the organizers that brought the inflatable rat on the back of a pickup truck and brought up our short line people to 777. Is that the correct address?
Right.
Yeah.
And rallied alongside of you for the 2 days that we had the rat sitting there in front of the office, okay? So, yeah,
And will you, just as a follow-up question, are you always going to be part of us because you know that, you know, Gray Line does have,
absolutely.
okay.
It's always been that way.
Brooks,
Yes, sir.
being vice president, do you really understand the responsibility is what laid before you? And have you had any type of position of like this before?
Vice President?
Of any type of responsibility for rank and file members?
Yes, I before I started working with HCL Shortline, I were shop chairman for Teamsters Local 337.
Okay,
Yes, I have. And I've been recording secretary here. I've been on the executive board here at 225. Yes, I have.
I'm not asking you about that, but what responsibilities will you partake to be a vice president
Well,
in that type of position?
I will be the eyes and the ears of the president. I will listen to each and every member from branch 1, 2, and 3. No, I haven't done it before, but yes, I will. And
Okay,
that's what I will do. Report back to the president.
James, you're recording secretary as of right now. Being that you are part of the board and you're looking for the responsibility of being the vice president of our union, is there anything more, or what are your expectations to bring to this union? You've already opened up, and I do understand websites, and I do this, and I'm not gonna fawn you, or I'm not gonna say anything about that. You've done a good job in that sense. But how are you gonna follow up with this in vice presidency? Because that's more responsibility.
Unfortunately, you were stuck in the tunnel in traffic, and I gave a 5-minute opening statement with some of my goals, but I can recap. One of the things I'd like to do is put together an interbranch committee to look at reforming our bylaws. Anyone who has actually gone through the nightmare of reading our bylaws find that they're antiquated, contradictory, and actually make it more difficult to operate a union than to operate it properly. And they're decades late being properly reformed. And so I'd like to get a broad consensus in our union for that. As I mentioned before, I'd like to get more involved in organizing in greater places in our union rather than just here in Times Square.
And Rick?
I'm giving him one of Robert's questions.
Well, Rick, you're a very well respected tour guide. You have been in Gray Line for a long period of time. I just find it unusual right now that all of a sudden you decide that you want to run for a position of vice presidency. There might be other positions that are opening up. Here's my question. I know you understand the process of TWU, but I just want to know, how come it took you so long to really give what you have to give to this union when you were sitting back for about 8 years?
Well, let me just respond and a little bit to what, going back with unions I've been in before. I've had a number of jobs that are called punch-in-the-mouth jobs, where you go out and you walk up and, like Louis was saying, you meet a guy in an alleyway. Well, it's not always an alleyway. Sometimes it's outside a nightclub, and you're working for ASCAP, and you're looking for royalties. That's called a punch-in-the-mouth job. When I was in the when I was a member of the Taxi Limousine Commission, not taxi limousine, well, put it this way, the taxi driver union, and you went to a union meeting in the 70s and you raised your hand to ask a question, you got shouted down as a communist, literally. And outside, we would have to, I was a member of a group called Rank and File, and we would have tape recorders on, we'd be going wired with microphones coming out of the sleeve when we talked to the bosses. And also, yes, some of our guys took beatings right on like 21st Street, okay? So why would I do this here? Why would I get involved? Well, this time around, it was a total impulse. By talking to other people, other members, I got called out for saying, I'll hold your coat, you go in and do the fight. And I got called out for it. And I got caught trying to talk to the international, and and when I'm trying to ask questions about about processes, I ended up representing myself as running for VP. And rather than lie to them, and I just said, yeah, I'm running. And that's it. It was an impulse move. And of course, like many of us, our best impulses give us the best stuff sometimes.
Okay. Okay, and just let me,
Not always.
let me follow up on that, if you don't mind. So, what type of experience are you gonna bring for the vice presidency?
Well, I'm going to bring a couple of things. I understand the VP is basically shows up one day a month, and is there if the president decides he doesn't want to go to a hearing or an arbitration. In which case, I can read files. I might not be a lawyer or a paralegal, but, I can learn. Anything I don't know, I can pick up. It's not rocket science, and I dare say any of our membership can learn and get up to speed. Just like we did to become tour guides or drive a bus or sell a ticket. Some of us may have more skills over here, over there, but I think that I bring a number of skills, people skills, a little bit of academic stuff, I know it's not that sexy, but
No, no.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay, so is that your,
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Robert, do you have a question yet?
Yeah, but I don't want to ask it, so we'll just.
All right.
All right, go.
Let me do this. Of course, we had this very unusual circumstance that had happened with our president, Ms. Fleming. And so, yeah, what I'd like to do is, no? Would you like Ms. Fleming to open up the floor with the question?
I have a question.
I think you do deserve to have that.
I have a question.
Thank you.
All of you are running for executive vice president. I presume
that you read what is involved, and Mr. Ortiz said that he has good experience, and I know from my personal experience that he's well-versed on the contract that his people have to deal with. I'm not so well-versed on what Mr. Brooks can do. You, Mr. Music, sit on the executive board. I would like to know, do you all know the LMRDA law? That's my question. And the reason is because Title I says, the Bill of Rights of Members of Labor Organizations, it says dues, initiation fees, and assessments, except in the case of a federation or national or international organization, the rates and dues and initiation fees payable by members of any labor organization in effect on the date of the enactment of this act, which is 1959, shall not be increased, and not general or special assessment shall be levied upon the members, which means to say, in the case of a local organization, by a majority vote, secret ballot of the members in good standing, voting at a general or special membership meeting after reasonable notice of the intention to vote upon such a question, or two, by majority vote of the members in good standing, voting in a membership referendum conducted by secret ballot, which means to say that the raising of the dues that just happened were illegal against the federal law. So, if Mr. Ortiz knows, I'm sure you know that the dues were raised, but you didn't know this. Mr. Brooks, you didn't protest it, or whatever the story was. You sat in the executive board and voted to raise the dues without checking a little law that we have, which is the law of the land, which says that you cannot raise the dues without a referendum from the people. Now, my question to you, you can't fix that, but if you could, how would you fix it? Same for you, and what are you gonna do since you were there and you voted on this raising of the dues?
I think we're missing.